The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species sat in their floating seats, arranged in a massive circle that stretched toward the distant ceiling. Light from a dying star filtered through the crystal dome above, casting everything in shades of gold and red. Ambassador Yunhana stood alone in the center of the hall. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but she held her back straight and her chin high. Around her, alien faces watched with cold expressions. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no faces at all, just smooth surfaces that somehow conveyed disgust. High Counselor Veth rose from his seat at the top of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and forearms that moved like flowing water. His species, the Eldari, had ruled the council for 10,000 years. They believed themselves to be the wisest beings in the galaxy. They believed humans were little better than animals. "The vote has been counted," Veth announced. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "By unanimous decision of all member species, humanity is hereby exiled from the Galactic Council." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some species clapped their hands or tentacles. Others made sounds of approval. Ambassador Yunhana did not move. She had known this was coming for months. "The crimes of humanity are many," Veth continued, reading from a glowing tablet. "Cultural contamination of 17 protected species. Unauthorized expansion into 47 star systems. Destabilizing influence on galactic trade. Refusal to limit population growth. And most serious of all, the continued development of weapons technology beyond approved levels." Yunhana wanted to laugh. Cultural contamination meant that other species liked human music and stories. Unauthorized expansion meant that humans had settled empty worlds that nobody else wanted. Destabilizing influence meant that human traders worked harder and charged less than their competitors. And weapons development, that was the real reason. The council was afraid. Humans had joined the galactic community 200 years ago. They had been excited and eager, ready to learn and share. But from the very first day, they had been treated as lesser beings. They were given the worst planets. They were charged the highest taxes. They were banned from the best universities and the most important jobs. And still, somehow, they had thrived. That was the problem. Humans thrived too much. They grew too fast. They learned too quickly. They asked too many questions and refused to accept their place at the bottom of galactic society. Earth has 30 standard days to withdraw all citizens from non-approved territories, Veth declared. After this period, any human found outside the Sol system will be considered an enemy of the Council and dealt with accordingly. Furthermore, all warp gates connecting to human space will be permanently sealed. Now the hall erupted in celebration. Species that had hated each other for millennia were united in their joy at humanity's downfall. They cheered and stamped and made their various sounds of happiness. Ambassador Yunhana raised her hand and requested permission to speak. Veth hesitated, then nodded. Perhaps he wanted to see her beg. She did not beg. "High Counselor," she said, her voice calm and clear, "I will not ask you to change your decision. I know that your minds were made up long before this vote. I know that some of you have wanted this day since my ancestors first reached for the stars." The crowd grew quiet. They wanted to hear what the defeated human would say. "I only want to tell you something," Yunhana continued. "Something that my grandmother told me when I was a child. She said that humans are like water. You can dam us. You can freeze us. You can boil us away. But we always find a path forward. We always return." She looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as she could. "You think you are removing a problem today. You think that by pushing us into one small corner of the galaxy, you will finally have peace. But you are wrong. You are making us stronger. You are giving us a reason to unite. And one day, maybe not in my lifetime, but someday you will remember this moment. You will remember the day you made an enemy of humanity." She paused and smiled, though there was no warmth in it. "And on that day, you will wish you had made us your friends instead." The crowd was silent now. Veth's 4 hands gripped his tablet tightly. "This session is concluded," he announced quickly. "Remove the human." Guards approached, but Yunhana was already walking toward the exit. She did not look back. Far away, in orbit around Earth, Admiral Park Dohan watched the broadcast on a screen in his command center. He was a large man with a scarred face and hands that had seen too many battles. Around him, his officers stood in shocked silence. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly. "What do we do?" Park Dohan turned off the screen. He looked out the window at the blue planet below, the only home humanity would have now. "We do what we must," he said. "We bring our people home. All of them. Every man, woman, and child from every colony we built. We leave nothing behind for them to take. And then..." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "And then we survive. We grow. We remember." He turned to face his crew, and his eyes were hard as stone. "They think this is the end of humanity. They are wrong. This is just the beginning." Over the next 30 days, the greatest migration in human history took place. Millions of people left the homes they had built on distant worlds. They took everything they could carry: seeds, machines, books, art, memories. They packed their ships so full that some could barely fly. Admiral Park Dohan personally oversaw the last evacuation ship leading the final colony. As it lifted off, he looked down at the city that humans had built there. Beautiful towers and green parks, schools and hospitals, everything a civilization needed. The Council would probably burn it all. When he returned to Earth, the warp gates were already closing. One by one, the connections that had linked humanity to the galaxy went dark. Within hours, Earth was completely cut off. That night, billions of humans looked up at the stars they could no longer reach. Some cried. Some cursed. Some simply stared in silence. But in military bases and research labs, in government buildings and private homes, a new feeling was growing. It was not despair. It was determination. The galaxy had thrown humanity away like garbage. Now humanity would show them what garbage could become. Ambassador Yunhana, watching the last warp gate close from her office window, whispered to herself, "You will remember this day. I promise you that." She was right. They would remember. They would all remember, but not in the way they expected. 100 years had passed since the exile. 100 years of silence. 100 years of darkness. The Galactic Council had expected humanity to die. They had calculated that without access to galactic resources, Earth's civilization would collapse within 50 years. The humans would starve. They would fight among themselves. They would fade away into history, just another failed species that had reached too high. They were wrong. Director Kim Jisoo stood at the window of her underground facility, watching data scroll across dozens of screens. She was 53 years old, with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. For the past 20 years, she had led Earth's Defense Initiative, the secret program that would ensure humanity's survival. Behind her, Dr. Baek Sun-ho was explaining their latest breakthrough to a room full of scientists and military officers. He was an old man now, bent and gray, but his mind was sharper than ever. The Council ships use warp gates because they believe it is impossible to travel faster than light without them, he said, pointing to a holographic diagram. They have believed this for 10,000 years. They never questioned it. They never tried to find another way. He smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. We found another way. The room erupted in whispers. Director Kim Jisoo turned from the window to watch. We call it full technology, Dr. Beak continued. Instead of traveling through space, we fold space itself. A journey that would take years through a warp gate can now be completed in seconds. And the best part? He paused for effect. We do not need gates. We can go anywhere. Anywhere at all. A young officer raised her hand. Her name was Captain Lee Mai-Ray, and she was one of the best pilots in Earth's secret fleet. She had lost both her parents during the Exile evacuation. Their ship had been destroyed by a council patrol that claimed they were moving too slowly. How long until we can build ships with this technology? She asked. We already have, Dr. Beak said. 23 ships, fully equipped. Ready for testing. Director Kim Ji-soo stepped forward. This is not just about transportation, she said. For the past century, we have been developing everything. New weapons, new shields, new materials, new medicine. The council thought they were punishing us by cutting us off. Instead, they freed us. She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's brightest minds. When we were part of the council, we had to follow their rules. We could not develop certain technologies because they said so. We could not ask certain questions because they said so. We had to be small and quiet and grateful for whatever scraps they gave us. Her voice hardened. Now we follow no rules but our own. Now we ask every question. Now we reach for everything they told us we could not have. In the months that followed, Captain Lee Mai-Ray led the first reconnaissance missions outside the Sol system. A ship, the Silent Wind, could travel anywhere in the galaxy without being detected. The Council's sensors were designed to find warp gate signatures. They had no way to detect fold technology. She visited worlds that humanity had been forced to abandon. Most had been destroyed or left to rot. The Council had not wanted the colonies. They had simply wanted to make sure humans could not have them. She visited Council worlds too, watching from the shadows. What she saw surprised her. The galaxy had not changed in 100 years. The same species ruled the same worlds in the same ways. The same trade routes carried the same goods. The same laws protected the same powerful families. It was as if time had stopped. They have no reason to change, she reported to Director Kim Ji-soo. They have no competition, no challenges, no threats. They have become lazy and comfortable. Director Kim Ji-soo nodded slowly. Good. Let them stay comfortable. Let them stay blind. Earth was changing rapidly. The necessity of survival had pushed humanity to innovate faster than ever before. Farms that once struggled to feed millions now fed billions. Factories that once needed thousands of workers now ran themselves. Hospitals that once could not cure simple diseases now defeated death itself. And the military had become something terrifying. Dr. Beak Sun-ho's weapons laboratory produced technology that would have been considered impossible by Council standards. Shields that could absorb any energy attack and redirect it back at the attacker. Guns that fired concentrated gravity, crushing targets into points smaller than atoms. Bombs that created temporary black holes, swallowing everything nearby before vanishing. We are not building these to conquer. Director Kim Ji-soo reminded her staff regularly. We are building them to survive. We do not know what threats exist in this galaxy. We only know that when those threats come, we must be ready. She was wise to prepare. But even she could not imagine what was coming. As the century drew to a close, humanity had transformed completely. They had built a civilization that would have amazed their ancestors, a civilization of wonder and power, hidden in the darkness of space. Captain Lee Mai-Ray, now an admiral herself, commanded a fleet of 300 ships. Each one was more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Each one was crewed by humans who had grown up knowing that the galaxy hated them, and who had decided that they would survive anyway. One night, Admiral Lee Myray stood alone on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars. "They forgot about us," she said to herself. "They threw us away and forgot we ever existed. They think we died in the dark." She thought about her parents, whose bodies were still floating somewhere in space, never recovered, never buried. She thought about all the humans who had died in the exile, the sick who could not survive the journey, the old who gave up their places on evacuation ships for children, the families torn apart by council cruelty. "We did not die," she whispered. "We grew. We learned. We became something new." Far below, on Earth, a new generation was being born. These children had never known the galaxy. They had never been told they were inferior. They had grown up in a world where humans were the only intelligent species, where human achievement was the only measure of success. They were strong. They were proud. They were completely unafraid. "We will never beg," they were taught in school. "We will never forget. We will be ready." Ready for what, they asked? The teacher smiled and said, "For whatever comes next." And something was coming. In the vast emptiness beyond the galaxy's edge, something ancient and hungry was waking up. It had consumed 1,000 civilizations before. It had destroyed species older than the stars. Now it turned its attention toward the Milky Way. The Council, comfortable and blind, had no idea. They were too busy congratulating themselves on their wisdom and power. But humanity was watching. Humanity was always watching. And when the darkness came, humanity would be ready. The silent century was ending. The century of fire was about to begin. The first warning came from a small trading outpost on the edge of Council space. A panicked transmission, barely coherent, speaking of darkness and teeth and things that should not exist. Then silence. The Council sent a patrol ship to investigate. It never returned. They sent a fleet. That fleet sent back exactly one message before being destroyed. They are eating the stars. High Counselor Veth II sat in the same chamber where his grandfather had exiled humanity 100 years ago. He was younger than his grandfather had been, but his face showed the same arrogance. The same certainty that the Eldari knew best. That certainty was fading quickly. "Show me again," he commanded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing images captured by the dying fleet. Massive creatures, larger than moons, moved through space like fish through water. Their bodies were made of metal and flesh twisted together. Machines and biology merged into something horrible. Behind them came smaller creatures, billions of them, swarming like insects around a corpse. "We call them the Hollow," his military advisor said, his voice shaking, "because they hollow out everything they touch. Planets, stars, entire systems. They consume all matter and energy, leaving nothing behind." Where did they come from? Beyond the galactic rim. We believe they have been traveling through the void between galaxies for millions of years, feeding on whatever they find. Veth II gripped the arms of his throne. "How do we stop them?" The advisor was silent for a long moment. "We do not know if we can. The war, if it could be called a war, lasted 6 months. The Hollow swept through Council space like a plague, unstoppable and merciless. They did not negotiate. They did not communicate. They simply consumed. The proud Eldari fleet, which had maintained peace for 10,000 years, was destroyed in a single battle. The Vorn, a species known for their advanced technology, lasted 3 weeks before their home world was devoured. The Keth, the Morali, the Thousand Suns Alliance all fell. All were consumed. Refugees flooded toward the center of Council space, but there was nowhere safe to go. The Hollow were everywhere, spreading in all directions, eating everything in their path. In his private chambers, Veth II read the casualty reports. Billions dead. Trillions dead. Numbers too large to comprehend. species that had existed for millions of years. Gone and dazed, his advisor entered without knocking, a sign of how desperate things had become. "Hi, Counselor. There is something you must see." The advisor activated a recording. It showed a council scout ship that had been exploring near the Sol system, the sealed off region where humanity had been exiled. "We sent this ship to check if the Hollow had reached human space," the advisor explained. "We wanted to know if they were already dead." The recording showed the scout ship approaching the outer edge of the Sol system. And then, without warning, something appeared directly in front of it. A ship, but not like any ship the Council had ever seen. It was massive, dark, covered in strange angles and weapons that glowed with unknown energy. The scout ship tried to run. The human vessel, for it could only be human, let it go. "They are alive," Veth 2 whispered. "More than alive, High Counselor. Our ship's sensors detected hundreds of similar vessels in the system. Perhaps thousands. They have technology we cannot identify. Technology that should not exist." Veth 2 stared at the image of the human ship. It looked like something from a nightmare, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "They survived," he said, almost to himself. "We cut them off from everything. We expected them to die. And they survived. More than survived, High Counselor. They have grown. Far away, on Earth." Specialist Han Yuri was the first to intercept the Council's desperate broadcast. She was a young woman with quick eyes and quicker hands. Stationed at a listening post that monitored all galactic communications, she played the message for General Cho Taiwan, who had replaced the long-dead Admiral Park Don as Earth's supreme military commander. He was a cold man, hard and calculating, with no patience for weakness or sentiment. "High Counselor Veth 2, the recording said, the alien's voice trembling with fear. "Grandson of High Counselor Veth, who ordered the exile of humanity 100 years ago. I am broadcasting on all frequencies, hoping that somehow this message reaches Earth." General Cho Taiwan's expression did not change. "We are dying," Veth 2 continued. "A threat has emerged that we cannot defeat. The hollow creatures from beyond the galaxy are consuming everything. Billions have died. Trillions will follow. We have tried everything. Nothing works. Our weapons are useless. Our shields are useless. Our ships are useless." The alien paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "We were wrong to exile you. We were wrong to fear you. We were wrong about everything. I do not ask for forgiveness. I know we do not deserve it. I only ask. I beg. Please help us. Please. If there is any mercy in your hearts, any memory of the species we once were to each other, please help us. Without you, we will all die. Every species. Every world. Everything." The recording ended. General Cho Taiwan sat in silence for a long time. Around him, his staff waited nervously. "They laughed when they threw us out," he finally said. "They celebrated. They called us animals and vermin and mistakes of evolution. Now they beg. What are your orders, sir?" Specialist Han Yuri asked. The general stood and walked to the window, looking out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Hollow were coming. They would reach human space eventually, of that he had no doubt. The question was not whether humanity would fight them, but when and where. "Call a meeting of the World Parliament," he said. "Play them this recording. Let them decide." The debate lasted for 3 days. Some demanded that humanity ignore the Council and let them suffer as humanity had suffered. Others argued that helping the Council would give humanity power over them. Still others believed that the Hollow would come for Earth eventually, and it was better to fight them in Council space than home. On the final day, an old woman rose to speak. Her name was Yoon Jion, and she was 93 years old, the daughter of Ambassador Yoon Hana, who had delivered humanity's final message to the Council a century ago. "My mother told me something before she died," she said, her voice thin but steady. "She told me that someday the Council would come begging for our help. She said that on that day, we would have a choice. We could become like them, cruel, petty, afraid of anything different. Or we could become something better." She looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. My mother believed in humanity. She believed that we were capable of greatness that the Council could never imagine. Not greatness in war or technology, but greatness in spirit. Greatness in mercy. Greatness in being more than what others expected of us. She paused, gathering her strength. "The Council threw us away like garbage. Now we can show them what garbage can become. Not by letting them die, but by saving them when they could not save themselves." The vote was close, but in the end, humanity chose to help. General Cho Taiwan received his orders with a nod. He did not smile, but something flickered in his cold eyes, something that might have been anticipation. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded. "All ships, all weapons, everything we have." He looked one more time at the recording of Veth II's desperate plea. They wanted us gone. They got their wish. Now they will learn why the galaxy needs us. The 100 years of silence were over. Humanity was returning to the stars, and the stars themselves would tremble. High Counselor Veth II stood on the observation deck of his command station, watching his civilization burn. In the distance, a hollow swarm was consuming what remained of the Eldari Third Fleet. Ships that had taken decades to build were being torn apart in seconds, their crews devoured alive. "How long until they reach us?" he asked. 6 hours, his advisor replied. "Perhaps less. 6 hours." That was all that remained of the Eldari civilization. 10,000 years of history, art, culture, and achievement. All of it would be gone in 6 hours. Veth II had prepared a final message for whatever species might someday find the ruins of his people. He had recorded their history, their accomplishments, their dreams. He wanted someone to know that the Eldari had existed, that they had mattered. He wondered if anyone would ever hear it. Then the alarms began to sound. "High Counselor!" his advisor shouted. "Something is appearing?" Multiple signatures, hundreds of them, no, thousands. Veth II looked at the tactical display. Across the system, ships were appearing out of nowhere, not through warp gates, but simply materializing from empty space. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Dark and angular, covered in weapons that glowed with strange light, larger than any vessels in Council records. "The humans," he breathed. The first human ship to engage the Hollow was the battleship Eternal Dawn, commanded by Fleet Admiral Kang Jung-ho. He was a tall man with gray hair and a calm voice that never wavered, even in the heart of battle. His crew loved him. His enemies feared him. And today, he would show the galaxy what humanity had become. "All ships, this is Admiral Kang," he announced over the fleet channel. "We did not come here to save the Council. We came here because innocent people are dying, children, families, beings who had no part in our exile. We will protect them because it is right, not because we were asked. Let the history books record this day. Let them record that when the galaxy faced extinction, humanity answered. All ships engage." The human fleet moved like a single organism, each ship perfectly coordinated with every other. They did not use the Council's tactics, which relied on keeping distance and firing from afar. Instead, they dove directly into the hollow swarm, moving between the massive creatures like swimmers through waves. The Hollow had never faced anything like this. For millions of years they had consumed civilizations that fought the same way, sitting back, building walls, hoping to survive. No one had ever attacked them so directly, so fearlessly, Human weapons tore through hollow flesh with terrifying efficiency. Dr. Shin Yunji's quantum disruptors, weapons that destabilized matter at the atomic level, left gaping holes in creatures the size of mountains. Singularity bombs, carefully deployed, created temporary black holes that swallowed entire hollow formations before collapsing. But it was not just the weapons that shocked the watching council survivors. It was the humans themselves. Veth too watched in disbelief as human soldiers deployed onto hollow creatures, fighting hand-to-hand in conditions that would have killed any other species instantly. The hollow breathed poison. The humans wore armor that recycled their air. The hollow generated massive radiation. The humans had modified their own bodies to survive it. The hollow fought without fear or mercy. The humans fought the same way, but with skill and creativity the hollow had never encountered. And they were laughing. Veth II could hear their communications, shouts of encouragement, battle cries, songs. They were actually singing as they fought for their lives against creatures from beyond the stars. "What are they?" he asked, to no one in particular. Admiral Kang's voice came over an open channel, answering as if he had heard the question. "Attention all council vessels. This is Fleet Admiral Kan Junho of the Human First Expeditionary Force. We are not here for your governments or your councils. We are here for your people, the civilians who did not vote to exile us, the children who were not yet born. Hold your positions. Evacuate anyone you can. We will handle the rest." For the next 12 hours, the human fleet fought without rest. Ships that were damaged pulled back only long enough to make repairs, then returned to battle. Crews that lost their vessels transferred to others and kept fighting. When one tactic stopped working, they invented new ones on the spot. The hollow, for the first time in their ancient existence, began to retreat. Veth II could not believe what he was seeing. The swarm that had destroyed 100 civilizations was being pushed back by a single species, a species his grandfather had thrown away like garbage. As the battle wound down, Admiral Kang brought his flagship alongside Veth II's command station. The High Counselor requested permission to come aboard, something no Eldari had ever done with a human vessel. Admiral Kang granted the request. Veth II walked through the human ship in a daze. Everything was different from council designs, more efficient, more advanced, more alive. Human crew members watched him pass with expressions that mixed curiosity, contempt, and something he could not identify. He found Admiral Kang on the bridge, studying tactical displays. "You came," Veth II said. It was all he could think to say. Admiral Kang turned to face him. His eyes were hard, but not cruel. "We came," he agreed. "Why? After everything we did to your people, why would you save us?" The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "There is a human concept called mercy," he finally said. "It means showing kindness to those who do not deserve it. Your grandfather showed us none. Your council showed us none. For 100 years, we remembered that. We taught our children to remember. We swore that we would never forget." He stepped closer to Veth II, and the High Counselor had to fight the urge to step back. But we also remembered something else. We remembered who we wanted to be. Not victims. Not avengers. Not monsters like those who hurt us. We wanted to be human, truly human. And humans, at their best, are capable of mercy. "I do not understand," Veth II admitted. "No," Admiral Kang agreed. "You do not. Your people never learned this lesson. For 10,000 years, you ruled through fear and control. You never once considered being kind simply because you could." He turned back to the tactical display. "We are not saving you because you deserve it. We are saving you because we refuse to become what you wanted us to be, small, afraid, cool. You made us stronger, High Counselor. Your exile forged us into something the galaxy has never seen. And now you will see what humanity chooses to do with that strength. Outside the viewport, human ships were hunting down the last of the hollow in this system. Rescue shuttles were landing on damaged council vessels, human medics treating alien wounded. We have identified the hollow's origin point, Admiral Kang continued. A hive structure in a system beyond the galactic rim. We are going to destroy it. When it is done, the hollow will be gone forever. That is impossible, Beth 2 said automatically. The journey alone would take 6 hours with our technology. We leave tomorrow. Veth 2 stared at the Admiral. 6 hours. A journey that would take Council ships decades, and the humans could do it in 6 hours. What have you become? He whispered. Admiral Kang smiled a thin, cold smile that held 100 years of pain. We are what you made us, High Counselor. We are humanity. And we are just getting started. The next day, the human fleet gathered for the final assault. 500 ships, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, prepared to fold space and travel to the heart of darkness itself. Admiral Kang addressed his forces one final time. For 100 years, we waited in the dark. We grew. We learned. We prepared. Now the moment has come. Today we do not fight for revenge or glory. We fight for every species in this galaxy, even those who hated us. We fight because no one else can. We fight because we are human, and this is what humans do. He paused, looking at the faces of his crews on hundreds of screens. Some of us will not return. That is the price of what we do. But those who fall will be remembered. Their names will be written in the stars. Their sacrifice will echo through eternity. He raised his hand. All ships fold. And in an instant, humanity vanished from Council space, racing toward a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Behind them, the survivors watched in silence. And for the first time, they began to understand what they had lost when they exiled humanity, and what they might gain if they could earn humanity's trust again. The hive was larger than a star. It hung in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, a massive structure of twisted metal and pulsing flesh that had traveled between galaxies for millions of years. From this place, the Hollow had been born. From this place, they had spread their hunger across the universe. And now, humanity had come to end it. Admiral Kan Junho looked at the hive through his viewport and felt nothing but cold determination. Around him, 500 human ships waited for his command. Behind them, in the systems they had left, billions of lives depended on what happened in the next few hours. The hive is protected by a neural shield. Dr. Shin Yoonji reported from the science vessel attached to his fleet. It generates a field that disrupts all known weapons. Nothing we have tried has been able to penetrate it. Then we will try something new, Admiral Kang replied. What powers the shield? The hive mind itself. It is connected to every hollow in existence. The shield draws energy from their collective consciousness. Admiral Kang nodded slowly. Then we need to break that connection. How? Dr. Shin Yoonji was silent for a moment, then spoke carefully. I have a theory. The neural shield is designed to stop external attacks. But if we could get inside the shield, if we could attack from within, the shield would be useless. You are suggesting we send ships inside the hive. Not ships. Admiral. People. A small team, moving quickly, could reach the central consciousness and destroy it directly. Without the hive mind, the shield falls. Without the shield, our fleet can destroy the structure. Admiral Kang closed his eyes. He knew what this meant. Whoever went into the hive would almost certainly not come out. I will lead the team, he said. His bridge crew protested, but he silenced them with a raised hand. I have given orders for 100 years. I have sent thousands of soldiers to fight and die while I watched from safety. Not today. Today I go with them." The assault began an hour later. While the main fleet engaged the hollow defenders outside the shield, Admiral Kang led a team of 50 soldiers in a small, fast ship toward the hive surface. They found a gap in the structure, a wound from some ancient battle, and dove inside. The interior of the hive was a nightmare. Walls that breathed, floors that pulsed with veins, air that tasted like death. The team moved through it with weapons ready, fighting past hollow guardians that emerged from every shadow. They lost soldiers at every turn. 10 fell in the first chamber, 8 more in the corridors beyond. By the time they reached the central consciousness, only Admiral Kang and 7 others remained. The hive mind was not what they expected. It was not a creature or a machine. It was a vast pool of light, billions of minds connected together, sharing thoughts and hunger across impossible distances. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "Plant the charges," Admiral Kang ordered as his soldiers worked. The hive mind spoke to him, not in words, but in feelings, images, and emotions that flooded his consciousness. It showed him the Hollow's history. It showed him the thousands of civilizations they had consumed. And it asked him a question. Why do you fight? You cannot win. Everything ends. Everything is consumed. This is the nature of existence. Admiral Kang thought of Earth. He thought of his children, his grandchildren, the billions of humans who had grown up in exile. He thought of Ambassador Yoon Hana's words, spoken 100 years ago. "We always find a path forward. We always return." "You are wrong," he said aloud, knowing somehow that the hive mind could hear him. "Everything does not end. Some things survive. Some things grow. Some things become more than they were. That is what you never understood. That is why you will lose." He drew his weapon and fired at the charges his team had planted. Humanity does not end. Humanity endures. The explosion was visible from space. The shield around the hive flickered and died. Admiral Kang's fleet, now commanded by his second-in-command, opened fire with everything they had. The hive burned. The hollow across the galaxy, suddenly cut off from their hive mind, went mad, attacking randomly, destroying themselves, falling silent. Within hours, the greatest threat the universe had ever known was destroyed. But the victory came at a terrible price. Of the 50 soldiers who had entered the hive, none survived. Admiral Kang Junho, the hero who had led humanity back to the stars, was gone. Months later, the galaxy gathered to decide its future. The old council was gone, its species too weakened, its authority too damaged to continue. In its place, a new assembly formed, with representatives from every surviving civilization. Humanity was offered leadership. They were offered thrones and crowns, power over all the species that had once ruled them. President Moon So-hee, Earth's elected leader, refused. "We did not fight for power," she said in her address to the assembly. "We did not sacrifice our best people so that we could become the new tyrants of the galaxy. We fought because it was right. We saved you because it was right. And now we will help you rebuild not as masters, but as partners." The assembly was stunned. No species in galactic history had ever rejected such an offer. Ambassador Im Dong-yun, humanity's new representative, explained it to them. "You exiled us because we were different. You feared our strength, our ambition, our refusal to accept our place at the bottom. For 100 years, we lived with that fear. We felt it every day. It shaped us. It made us who we are." He looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had once considered humans to be little better than animals. But we chose not to let that fear turn us into monsters. We chose to become something better. We chose mercy when we could have chosen revenge. We chose kindness when we could have chosen cruelty. That is the lesson we learned in the darkness. That is the lesson we hope you will learn too. The new treaties were signed. Humanity became a protector of the galaxy, but not a ruler. Their technology was shared with any species that wanted it. Their soldiers helped rebuild worlds devastated by the Hollow. Their doctors healed the wounded of every race. And slowly, over years and decades, the galaxy began to change. Species that had hated each other for millennia started to cooperate. Old grudges were set aside. New friendships were formed. Veth, too, who had survived the war, came to Earth to see the world that had produced such remarkable beings. He walked through human cities, ate human food, listened to human music. He saw children playing in parks, families gathering for meals, artists creating beauty from nothing. On his last night, he met with Ambassador Ndongyun in a small garden overlooking the ocean. "Will your people ever forgive us?" Veth too asked. "For what my grandfather did? For what we all did." Ambassador Ndongyun was quiet for a long time, watching the waves roll against the shore. "Forgiveness takes time," he finally said. "Trust takes longer. There are humans who will never forgive. There are wounds that may never fully heal. We lost too much. We suffered too long." He turned to face the former High Counselor. "But we are patient. We learned that in the dark. We learned that some things are worth waiting for. Peace, understanding, a galaxy where our children can walk freely among the stars. Those things are worth the wait." Veth too bowed his head. "I wish my grandfather could have seen what you became. I think it would have changed everything." "Perhaps," the ambassador agreed. "Or perhaps this is how it had to happen. Perhaps we needed the darkness to find our light." On the coast of Earth, a monument stood. It listed the names of everyone who had died in the exile, in the century of isolation, and in the war against the Hollow. Millions of names, carved in stone that would last forever. At the top of the monument, words were carved in every language humanity had ever spoken. They cast us into the void. We returned as the light. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see it. They stood before the names and tried to understand what humanity had endured. Some wept. Some prayed in their own ways. Some simply stood in silence, humbled by the magnitude of human sacrifice. And far above, in the space between stars, human ships patrolled the darkness. They watched for threats. They protected the weak. They remembered the past, but they also looked forward. Because humanity had learned something in their exile, something the Council had never understood. The universe was vast and full of danger, but it was also full of possibility, full of wonder, full of beings who might become friends if given the chance. The exile was over. The war was won. The future was waiting. And humanity, as always, was ready. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning.